10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. Good luck, studio.
Oh, it's that time again. Paul Chandler's gonna start this whole thing he does. It's called the Shylock Podcast. It's probably gonna start any minute now. Anyway, I think you'll enjoy it. Okay, sit back and relax.
Oh, it's the Shylock Podcast.
All I wanted was a pie, and then I hatched out of an egg.
Okay, bring the mic over. He's ready to record.
It's the quiet ones you've got to watch, you know.
Is it metaphorical? Is it deep? Is it deep?
Good boy. He's not all that shy, is right.
Blimey, Governor. It's the Shy Life Podcast.
Excellent.
564.
Bonjour et bienvenue au podcast The Shy Life.
Hello and welcome to yet another episode of the Shy Life Podcast with me, Paul the Shy Yeti. How you doing? I'm all right. So, what's this episode going to be about? Well, it sees the return of, by now, one of our regular special guests, Mr. Warren. Yes, Uncle Warren from the Cinematic Sausage Podcast. Yes, well, the last time you heard him speak was when we recorded with Nick. Warren, Nick and I discussing back in the day. But the time before that was when he came over and we talked a bit about TV and he met all the regulars. Well, he went down extremely well with at least two of them. Well, probably more than two of them. But anyway, let's run that theme music. And when we come back, I'll explain a little more and then we'll get Warren in. Yeah. We're trying to sort out a slight disagreement that's come about. Anyway, run that theme music.
Darling, it's the Shy Life Podcast.
Yes, but it's a positive thing, Paul. The highlights, the Shy Life.
You won't find a cast of characters like this everywhere.
Hello, Paul.
I'll go anywhere for a potato.
Delicious. Hello, Captors. How are you?
You quite like a big bang, don't you?
Go Shy Yeti.
Oh, I hope he hasn't found out my secret. I think he has.
If you thought that was bad, just listen to this.
Oh, I can't wait. I can't wait for it to begin.
It's the Shy Life Podcast.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm strangely drawn to Yeti Uncle John's ankles as well.
But has the Shy Life Podcast slowed down? I don't think so.
It's all gooey and meaty and yum.
Has anyone seen my hot sausage?
So, listeners, what am I talking about? Well, let's say that when Warren came to meet the regulars, he turned the heads of a number of our team. I mean, he got on well with Yeti Uncle John, and Cromitty was certainly enamoured. I'm not quite sure where they stand on this whole issue. It may turn out that Warren has even more fans than he thinks. But the two members of the team who are currently slightly at loggerheads are Bettina Evans-Dupre and Tallulah Twinklehorn. Now, both of them took a big liking to Warren, but it seems in the weeks and months since we recorded that they have both started fan clubs for our Uncle Warren. Yes, they're both claiming to be his biggest fan, and, you know, they've been downloading all those episodes of the Cinematic Sausage, the thing is, one would have hoped that they would have perhaps started a fan club together, but no, they started rival fan clubs. I mean, some of these fan clubs, you hear about them for pop stars and stuff. You often think, well, you know, this fan club for Take That, it's all run by, like, teenagers. Is there any likelihood that any of Take That, obviously not now, obviously I'm talking about back in the day, but is there much likelihood that any of Take That are going to be interested in any of their fans or their fan club, or who knows? But I guess I'm saying, well, if Tallulah or Bettina, I'm just wondering what the motivation is behind this rivalry. It's all very well, you know, Tallulah and Bettina starting a fan club, that can be a nice thing. But Bettina's married to August, so it can be nothing more than a innocent crush, surely. And I mean, Tallulah's a free woman, but yeah, no, I don't think that. I don't know. We need to find out. We need to find out what their motivation is. We need to find out. We need to try and get them to. I think it also takes the pressure off Warren a bit if the two ladies form a fan club, and maybe there are other ladies that join the fan club, and it just becomes a fan club. It's nothing more. Oh dear. I need to kind of get Warren's view on this. I mean, he might just be very, very flattered to have any fans. Any attention that helps, put the spotlight on the cinematic sausage. Anyway, we're very lucky that, I'm very lucky. I don't have to sort of talk to them by myself. Warren is actually going to come and join me, and we'll both go and speak to the ladies, and hopefully we can resolve this. Yeah, I just don't know. I don't know how many members each of the groups has. I don't know if it's literally just Tallulah by herself or Bettina by herself, or whether they've managed to both drum up extra fans. I don't know. We'll see. And, so there may be some park clips. There may even be a bit of time for some TV talk. I'm not sure. But anyway, let's play some music. When we come back, Warren will join us. And, hopefully we can sort this whole business out. All right. Have a listen.
Oh, Warren, I'm so glad you could be here. How are you doing?
Well, hello, Paul, and all the listeners at Shy Life.
Oh, blimey, you're very smooth today. Are you sure you've not been? Is it the whole fan club business? Are you sort of changing your image?
It's smoother than the cashmere codpiece.
Blimey, well, I think that it's no wonder you've got a fan club. If you definitely look a bit different this time as well.
Sorry about that. I had a slight echo caught in my throat there. It does happen. No. I look a bit different. It's because I've taken the bag off my head this morning.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yes.
I was thinking you'd been watching Department S or Jason King videos.
Well, you must say I am a spit for Jason King. Yes, he would spit at me.
Yeah. I haven't seen a kipper tie for. Well, I don't think I've ever seen a kipper tie.
It took me ages to put it on. Kept thrashing around damn thing.
Yeah, it must begin to smell after a while. But anyway, I guess
it's smoked after a while because I'm Jason King and he smokes like a train. I think it's a smoked kipper.
Okay, well, look, I really brought you here because I was telling you, and your Uncle Jonathan has spoken to you that your last visit to our little world. You definitely made a few fans to the point where they have set up their own fan groups. But you've got Tallulah on one side. She's a respectable member of the community. She runs a music school.
She's not, I've seen the photos.
Well, you've got Bettina Dupre, who definitely isn't. She might be respectful now. I'm not sure she used to be. She used to hang out with Andy Warhol and all sorts, and she's an actress.
Hanging off Andy's Warhol?
No.
Oh. So the line was a bit crackly there.
She was part of his gang, but that was a very long time ago. But she's an actress. But anyway, you've got two avid fans, and unfortunately, rather than sort of just join up into one group,
you see, I find this difficult. I'm very much. I'm not a fan club person. I don't like to be in the club. I just want to be me. I say to my fans, "Leave me alone. I want to be alone."
you're the pin-up of the moment. That's the thing.
Oh God, I hate to think with the drawing pin sticking in.
Well, I mean, I don't want to burst your bubble, but these ladies aren't exactly, they're not exactly young. I'm
not exactly young, dear boy, dear heart. You're so kind.
You are to them, but they. I think what we need to do is we need to make them sort of join together. I think one fan club is all you need, and we don't need all this fighting. There was some sort of squabbling down the pub the other night, and I think it ended up with Bettina and Tallulah in the duck pond.
Which bar did they do it in? Did they do it in the public or the saloon?
I think they did it in the duck pond outside of it.
Did it in the duck pond? I hate it when they take each other up the duck pond and they do things like this. There
was mud everywhere. It was not becoming. Unfortunately, listeners, we don't have that.
Eggs all over the stage.
Yeah, we don't have a recreation of that. Unfortunately,
thank Lord for that.
But, anyway, so Cromity's here.
Oh, hello, Cromity.
hello, Warren. It's so good to see you.
It's marvellous to see you. I've missed your company.
You're causing quite a stir.
Well,
yes.
It's not any part of me that causes a stir. They're strange ladies, aren't they?
It's not his fault, Cromity. By the way, you haven't joined one of these gangs, one of these groups. Well, no, I have not decided. I mean, not to say that I'm not a fan of yours, Warren, but I don't know. They both offer different perks for joining, you see, and I haven't yet worked out which one I prefer.
Lord, they don't have one of those private websites, do they? Just for fans?
No. I think this is more like what Paul has with Patreon. I think they're offering Warren merchandise, which presumably is unofficial if it's not been sanctioned by yourself.
It hasn't. No, it hasn't got my crest on it. I can assure you.
No, I think Bettina is offering a knobbly mug for one of the perks.
Leaky knobbly mug.
I don't think it's leaky. I hope it's not. And Tallulah has a 2023 Warren calendar. I'm not sure where she got the photos from, but they're quite something. But anyway.
Blimey, I can see one of them. They'll have your eye out.
He's just looking in the mirror now. Look, Cromity, don't embarrass the poor guy. We're going to go over and see Tallulah and Bettina separately. But before that, we need to talk about some TV, just to relax him, Cromity. So if you want to get Uncle John, is he going to drive us over? I believe so. I'll go and make sure he's ready.
Oh Lord, he hasn't been at the water again, has he?
No. He's got he when he's on duty, when he's driving his taxi, he keeps away from the water. But
yet Uncle John and his Uber for two.
Yes, yeah.
That sounds very rude.
I've been noting down the years we've discussed.
Yeah.
So I'm going to suggest 3 this time, and in future I'll so. I don't think we've done anything from the 1960s, so I've decided we will start with 1966 and see what happened in 1966.
I wasn't born.
Nor was I. Nor was I. But we do know a lot about older TV, so it barely matters. But looking at it, I don't know there were that many events in 1966, but we've got a busy show ahead of us. So
let's start from the big ones, shall we? Start with a few American ones, shall we? Shall we start with Batman?
Oh yes.
And this is the Cape Crusaders, Burt Ward, and the other bloke.
Yes.
I'm very good at remembering that.
Thingy.
The very
Adam
excitable
West.
Adam West. That's it. Yeah. Yes, love Adam West. He's a man that, the late Adam West, bless his heart, he's a man who could almost certainly take the mickey out of himself. He is very...
Yes.
Do you think this Batman's a bit of a parody, or do you think it's just another interpretation?
It's a slightly a parody, but it's also a thing in itself, if you choose it to be. It's sort of sort of what I think of Batman as being even now. But,
no, that's the way I think it should be, because it's real comic book, and that was the thing, wasn't it? And you've got amazing performances. Cesar Romero as the Joker.
Yeah.
It's just amazing. It's just that, and that laugh he has.
Yeah. From the looks of it, it looks like we possibly got Batman almost the same time as it was, because it's listed on ITV as being shown sort of pretty much.
Which would have been weird, because the fact that it's in colour really helps it, doesn't it? It really helps that comic book image. But if you're watching it in black and white, it's really not going to have the thing where they have the fights with the pow and the zap and whatever. It's really going to look very bland, isn't it? I'm going to say, when did you first sort of see Batman? I can remember as a child seeing Batman in the 70s.
Yeah, that title sequence I found quite scary, with all the sort of villains running past, and I'm not sure sometimes. I don't know how young I was, but I do remember it, and I do remember it when I was kind of young enough to be scared. And I don't know that I sometimes got to the... Because I think if I'd have got to the actual episodes, I would have been less scared, because they weren't necessarily scary, but that title sequence was quite scary.
But I love the Batmobile, though. The Batmobile was great. It's fantastic. Huge, great American car with fins and that, like, cockpit driving position. But I found that an absolutely amazing car, because it was just huge. And I had the Corgi Dinky toy, which used to fire things out the tubes at the back, and you press a button, and this giant, like, buzzsaw came out the front of the bonnet, and you could sort of wheel it up and let it go. That was great. That was. I love the Batmobile.
I wonder, in considering that the Avengers went into colour on ITV in that sort of 67, was it colour in 66, 67 or 66, 67, 68?
It went 66 into film, didn't it? I think.
And then it was in colour in 67. Then it was
colour, yeah. But I think that was main for export as well, wasn't it? It went into colour. So.
But this list I'm looking at, I get the feeling that Batman might have been broadcast in colour if you had it, but because the Monkeys on BBC One, it said it was broadcast in black and white. So, so I don't know whether they used Batman as a sort of one of their colour shows that they could, because presumably they broadcast the colour Avengers in colour. Again, only but whether you saw it in colour is a different matter. But.
Yeah, I mean, with things like BBC, they didn't start broadcasting until 68 with the advent of. In July, of the advent of Wimbledon, wasn't it? That was the first programme to really come out in colour on BBC Two, of all places.
We can come back to some of the other shows that debuted that year, but we should have a look at the sort of some of the notable moments. Now, on the 3rd of January 1966, Camberwick Green is the first television programme on BBC One to be shot in colour. And for those who don't know, Camberwick Green was a show made for kids, but a very sort of
had a bit of a cult following, didn't it?
Yeah, and it's sort of a thing of beauty to watch.
Oh, it is an absolute thing of beauty. It's sort of a forerunner to Aardman Animations, isn't it? Really, to a certain extent. Although the models weren't made of, they weren't made of plasticine, they were just manipulated. Yeah. But it was stop motion filming again. But it was so gentle and so wonderful. It's like if you've had a really bad day, you put Camberwick Green on it and things just like flow away.
Other things that I'll probably avoid this. Talk about sport, we'll avoid that.
Yeah, don't ask me about sport.
In March '66, they announced that they would begin broadcasting TV programmes in colour from 1967. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure from the sounds of it whether that was achieved quite. If you were saying it was, maybe we'll see when we talk about those years. ITV launched the TV program How, which was.
Hold on a moment, I'll do it properly. How.
And for those who don't know, that was it was an educational children's program. Hosted by Jack Hargreaves and Fred Dinage. I don't think I knew it went back quite to 66.
No, I'm surprised it goes back as far as then. But yeah, that went on for quite a while. I remember watching it in the colour years. It's a very simple, rudimentary programme showing children how things work, and in a sort of comedic way, aren't they? But still, as an educational programme, it was really good.
I was never that good with educational programs. I have a love-hate relationship with Blue Peter. I think probably liked it if it was talking about Doctor Who or talking about, or maybe some of the like climbing up Nelson's column or something. They were very good at going up high erections or going down deep, down low. But the thing with Blue Peter, it could be very snobby, couldn't it? It did become very snobby. Did you prefer things like the ITV, which was Magpie? I never really remember seeing Magpie. I wonder if it, because that didn't last as long as, Blue Peter still exists in some format even to today. But
yeah,
did Magpie even get into the 80s? I can't remember.
I'm not sure it did. No.
So I wonder if I ever saw it that much. But
that was sort of a more magazine program for kids, wasn't it? But it was just replaced by a gaggle of programs after that. Then we had CITV came in, didn't it? And they had Drama-Rama and things like that in the 80s, didn't they?
Yeah, I think to some extent I probably find the historical researching about Blue Peter probably more interesting now than I might have done at the time. I think it's probably just my strange mind. I think I kind of find it quite in the same way as Doctor Who companions, kind of, one comes, one leaves, but then they cross over for a while. In the same thing with the Blue Peter presenters, you get Peter Purvis and John Noakes and Valerie Singleton, but then she leaves and you get Leslie Judd for a while, and then one of the men leaves and then she crosses over with, and that sort of thing fascinates me. But
well, you can always tell somebody's sort of age, can't you? Because you ask them when they're who their Blue Peter presenters are, and you can sort of judge their age, can't you?
Yeah, I sort of do remember Leslie Judd, but probably more as she crossed over with people like Simon Groom and Sarah Green, and so I sort of probably come in on perhaps the late 70s into the 80s. But
we did have a programme that went on for quite a while in 1966, which I didn't realise started in 1966. In Europe, it's known as Je Sans Frontières.
Ah.
And over here, It's a Knockout.
Yeah. How do we explain that?
It's basically, it's a lot of regional areas that sort of compete in what I would say are weird and wonderful assault courses that have been thought out. A real Heath Robinson sort of thrown together assault courses, very, very basic assault courses, and sometimes they have to dress up in outrageous costumes to do things. It's very big and it's very colourful. But yeah, it was a very sort of light-hearted and friendly inter-rivalry, if you like, with areas around the country, and that was good fun. And I remember watching that a lot as a kid, because the presenters, whatever their history, we find out now, we won't mention that, but their laughter was infectious, and the puns were funny, and everybody seemed to be having fun and enjoying themselves on that show.
That definitely went into the 80s, because one of the most notorious or famous episodes was the one with the royal family involved for charity.
Yeah, the last one was 88, so I'm presuming that's the one. That's right, it had Fergie, didn't it? She got a little bit overexcited.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether that was the last one or whether that was it was towards the end, but yeah. There are a few other facts here. We have not a programme I ever watched, but the Money programme debuted on BBC Two, and that continued to air until 2010.
That was what Valerie Singleton did next after Blue Peter. She went on to the Money programme on BBC Two on a Sunday evening.
In April '66, the opening of Parliament was televised for the first time. And going back to Batman...
So how do we know it actually took place before then, if they didn't show it on the telly? They could have said... half a dozen people could have turned up and said, no, we've done it, nobody will know. We'll do it on the radio, put a few sound effects in, nobody will know, the rest of us can all go down the pub.
I think that's probably what actually happened. Going back to Batman, I think apparently I think it was sort of shown regionally, and some regions started taking it on, and then it took a while for the whole country to pick it up. But it apparently used to, because each story is sort of two parts, and apparently it would be shown on Saturday and Sunday evenings. So I think probably if they were doing that now, they probably, like they do with Coronation Street, they'd probably show the first part, then show something else in between, and then you get the second part about an hour later or something. May '66, Julie Goodyear makes her Coronation Street debut as Bette Lynch, but she didn't become a regular character until 1970.
I was going to say, because I've only ever seen her in colour, so probably doesn't exist. Or somebody will probably tell us different, but I can't remember seeing her in B&W.
Yeah, a lot of. I think virtually everything in Coronation Street exists. Is whether it's you have to really chase it down.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing with this sort of the 60s, isn't it? The 50s and the 60s, anything before the 50s and 60s, you can forget. It just doesn't exist. But 50s and 60s patches.
Some of these shows exist almost in full, but it's just a matter of with soap operas, it's difficult to you might do best of sets, but actually something like Sons and Daughters, where they know, okay, so there's 500, there's how many of them? 900 and something episodes. That will fit on so many box sets. We can do that because that's only 4 or 5 years. But something like Coronation Street, do you actually start doing as much as you can, or it's probably just too much work, too much clearances and that sort of thing?
I'm not a soap person, to tell you the truth. I was sort of I'm happy as I grew up. Sort of, if it was on in the background, you'd sort of watch a bit of it, but as a child, you sort of never got any interested. And I only sort of, for soaps, I only sort of tuned in for the exciting things like the people getting killed off in Coronation, some of the characters getting killed off in Coronation Street, the plane crash in Emmerdale Farm. I didn't really sort of watch things. The best Christmas Walford's never had, which appears to be every Christmas. I never really tuned in. I wasn't an avid soap fan. I just couldn't bring myself to find the time to come and sit in front of the box at that time of day, usually because I was doing my homework.
Yeah, nor were we in this family until Neighbours came along, and my mum was the first view of that. I probably only watched because all the kids were watching it at school. But
I was going to say, because Neighbours was at 1 o'clock, wasn't it? And then it was in the evening just before the news.
So, yeah, when you were sort of having your tea when you came home from school. So
yeah.
June '66, we have the sitcom Till Death Us Do Part, began its first series.
Yeah.
Now,
you're an Alf Garnett fan. Do you like Alf Garnett?
I've probably seen very few episodes, so I kind of undecided. I know he's one of those interesting characters where stupid people think that he don't realise that he's a parody on. Is Alf Garnett the same as, is he Archie Bunker or something in the States? Is that the same character basically?
No,
is it Alf Bunker?
I've heard of Archie Bunker. I'm not too sure. I can remember my great uncle thinking, my great uncle saying that Alf Garnett's right there, and I'm thinking, even as a child, going, no, he's not. He's an offensive lout.
Well, it's like the same problem with Ali G in the 90s, kids thinking that he was cool, but he was never meant to be cool. He was meant to be ridiculous. And I think, I don't know if that was partly the stupidity of kids or that it wasn't quite made clear enough. And the only time I remember it definitely being made clear enough was that I think that he did an Ali G movie, and in that it was a lot more that this character is ridiculous, you know, sort of riding a kid's BMX or something, sort of, and it was kind of it was a lot more clear in the movie that he wasn't to be idolised, but
he was a buffoon,
but
with his Julie.
Then we have, by the summer of '66, we have Patrick McGoohan quits the popular spy series Danger Man after filming only 2 episodes of the 4th series in order to...
in colour. That was the only ones in colour, wasn't it? Yeah, as opposed to Danger Mouse, because Danger Man lived in a nice flat in London and Danger Mouse lived in a pillar box in Baker Street. Where, in fact, the pillar box that he's supposed to live in does have a small little blue plaque. Have you seen the photograph of that?
No, I don't think so. But
somebody's made a blue plaque, a really tiny blue plaque, and put it on the bottom of the double pillar box by the tube station, and it says Danger Mouse probably lived here.
Oh,
I thought that's quite sweet.
No,
I had to get on my hands and knees for that. That nearly caused an accident.
Two things that this brings up is that obviously he quit Danger Man so he could start producing The Prisoner, which began filming in the September. But wouldn't you have thought if you just sort of quitted a TV show that nobody would, or you pissed off a few people, that they would then turn around and say, "Oh yeah, have another show, do what you like." You think that they would have expected him to have finished doing Danger Man before he started something new? But
I think he got very well. He wielded a lot of power because he was in with Lord Grade, who ran ITC, and also he was probably the highest paid actor in Britain at the time.
Yeah.
And his show, Danger Man, was just so popular in the export market as well. And I think it was a case of, well, I've taken this as far as it can go. And I'm not going to take it any further. I don't want to take it any further because then I'll just be sliding downhill. And I think he got involved a lot with the productions towards the end, and that did sort of annoy people.
Yeah.
So he suddenly thought, well, do you know what? I want total freedom in what I want to create. And went to Lou Grade and said, look, I want to make this series. He's going to be a bit of an anti-hero. And he's never going to escape. And Lou Grade went, as it's you, safe pair of hands, there's the money, go and make it. And that is literally what happened with him, because he was seen as such a safe pair of hands.
There's some mention here, I don't know if you've heard this series. It says, early October '66, the 4-part serial Talking to a Stranger, acclaimed as one of the finest British television dramas of the 1960s, began transmission in the Theatre 625 Strand on BBC Two. I'm not aware that I've even heard of that. Have you heard of that?
Never talk to a stranger. Their sweets are really deep in their pockets. No, I've heard the title, never seen it.
It does say it survives, and has been rebroadcast and released on home media. So that's it's got, who's it got in it? It's Hopkins, and I'm trying to see where the original. It's not saying. I'm trying to see if that means that Anthony Hopkins was it, but I can't see the first reference to. I don't know who Hopkins was. Oh, here we are. It's written by John Hopkins.
John Hopkins, who of course wrote for Z-Cars and did a lot of kitchen sink dramas.
Judi Dench is in it as a major early role. Maurice Denham, Marjorie Mason, Michael Bryant.
Is that Michael E. Bryant? Or just Michael Bryant?
It says Michael Bryant.
I always get
it. Michael Dennis Bryant, so no, probably different.
I know Michael Dennis. Michael Dennis used to be the Croft original butler. And he also used to be in a 1960s crime show as a barrister.
It was remade in Canada and twice in Belgium as well.
Which shows it's quite good, because those are the things. Usually the only things that travel are sort of quiz shows, aren't they, that travel internationally very well.
Also in October 66, the Thunderbirds are back for a second series, but it only has 6 episodes. And the original voice of Virgil Tracy, David Holliday, is now replaced by Jeremy Wilkin. I don't really know enough about Thunderbirds to know what the difference between season 1 and 2 is, but presumably season 1 is a lot longer.
Well, there was that, because Virgil was nearly booted out because, let's be fair, folks, Virgil had a problem, didn't he? We don't discuss what it is. But it was sort of leaking out onto set, quite literally.
Dear.
And there were talk of just getting rid of him for the second season, and things got so bad in season 2 that they only made 6 episodes because of his behaviour.
Dear. Got his strings all tottered up. Now, late October, 29th October, is William Hartnell's last regular appearance as Doctor Who, or was the first Doctor?
I remember Doctor Who. I've not mentioned it, but
yeah, I think I know which one you mean. And then 5th of November, Patrick Troughton takes over as this Doctor Who character, whoever he be.
Never heard of it. It'll never catch on.
No. And the same month, Cathy Come Home, possibly the best known play ever to be broadcast on British TV, is presented.
Yeah, that was about the housing crisis, wasn't it?
Mm.
And who's the boy with the knack? From the Doctor Who fans. Films. Him.
Peter Cushing? No.
No, not Peter Cushing. Oh, no. Not
Ray Brooks.
Ray Brooks, the boy with the knackers. That's the one. He was her partner in that, wasn't he? And I remember the closing sequence is very emotional, where social services, because they've got nowhere to live and they've been evicted, so they just can't get work, and they literally, the evictors kick in the door when they're barricading it to keep them out, and they go to live on the railway station concourse. It's the only way to stay that is warm and lit, and social services come along and take the children. And it was a very much a damning indictment of the social services and of housing in the 1960s, because we're still suffering from the fact that there's no housing after the Second World War. And a lot of families are either living in families' homes, it's a bit like now really, living in families' homes still, or they were just tossing down wherever they could. And some of these people, like their family, they weren't married, although they had a child, and that was still frowned upon then. But how life changes.
Other sort of well-known names, so I don't know how well they were well known then. We've got Geoffrey Palmer plays a property agent, Barry Jackson as rent collector, Ron Pember as
rent boy. Did you say
rent collector? Ron Pember as Mr. Jones. Leonard Pierce as the ratepayer. Tim Brooke Taylor as a wedding guest. I don't know how obvious some of these. Leonard Pierce, he from Only Fools and Horses, isn't he?
He is, yes. He was Grandad, wasn't he?
So Thunderbirds finishes in December 66, and then there's a famous version of Alice in Wonderland directed by Jonathan Miller. Right at the end of the year.
That's quite a bizarre thing to watch.
Not sure,
quite interesting.
Not sure if I've ever seen that or not.
That's got Peter Cook in, hasn't it?
I've seen a few versions of Alice in Wonderland, but I'm not sure I have seen that one.
Have you ever seen the Barry Letts one?
I think possibly. Which isn't Sarah Sutton in a version?
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah, I probably have
never seen that one. Never seen that one. I'd like to see that
one. Before we head on to some of the other things we need to do in this episode, other shows that started in '66 include Softly Softly, the detective program.
Detective program? Did you go?
Yeah, you know.
Did you go program?
You know more about Softly Softly than I do, I imagine.
Softly Softly. This moved to basically the West Country. And the two main characters from Z-Cars, Barlow and Watts, take charge of the crime task force down, the regional crime squad down in Wyvern, which is actually Bristol. And there's a lot of characters speaking with cod accents, which doesn't help it a bit.
Hello, my lover. Hello, my lover.
Oh, my darling, how you be? All right? Oh, my lover. Yeah, I've heard that for a while, actually.
It's not the only thing.
Whenever I go to my canteen at work, they've all got West Country accents. Hello, my lover. How are we doing? You looking very good, Barney.
We've also got the Frost Report. We've got all Gas and Gators. We've got...
sorry about that. That's the curry I had last night.
And Adam Adamant.
Yes.
Adam
yes,
lives.
This is the reward for Doctor Who for Verity Amber, wasn't it?
Yes.
Making that a success, she got another series. Did Adam go for one series? Did it? Or
It was two. It was two. I think
2 series.
Season 1 that exists more than 2, something like that.
Yeah.
One of the seasons exists more than the other, which is.
It's a really good. It's a really good series, actually.
Yeah, I still wonder. I kind of wish it had been made on ITV, though. I would like to see it being a show that would compete with the Avengers on film, but
yeah, it would have worked really good on film. Yeah. Really would have worked good on film.
Dusty Springfield's got her own BBC show around this time as well. So.
Is it just called Dusty? Isn't
Dusty,
it?
Yeah. I think
it's a cleaning show then, obviously.
Yes. She had two seasons of 6 episodes, and she had special guests on it, like Peter Cook or Woody Allen, Mel Torme, Tom Jones, and then she had another show called It Must Be Dusty in 1968.
It Must Be Dusty in 1968.
No.
I expect it probably was eventually that.
Yeah, she had TV shows sort of right into the 70s, really.
Yeah, she's always been a popular young lass.
Yes.
Young lass.
Now, this is weird. Very briefly, just finishing on this. There was a show with Dusty Springfield called Decidedly Dusty in 1969, shown around for one series. But and in it, she has special guests like some from music and some from comedy. Spike Milligan was a guest. One show, Danny LaRue, the Bee Gees. But the weird thing is, it says it was introduced by Valentine Dahl, who, if you don't know who that is, he was known for the radio and played the Black Guardian in Doctor Who and loads of other things. But he was kind of a menacing... the
voice in black.
Yeah, he's sort of a menacing presence.
The man in black, not the voice. The voice can't be in black. The man in black.
But he had a menacing reputation. So I imagine Dusty doing a sort of song with a big beehive, and then on her head, that is not a real beehive, a haircut, and a Valentine Guard go
stinging culture.
Now, Dusty, your guest star is Spike Milligan.
Waking or sleeping, Dusty, I'll be watching you.
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
How strange. But I guess
as if his rotting corpse was in the room.
Anyway, look, listeners, we need to get going. We need to head over to Tallulah's house. So we'll play a little bit of music, and when we come back, we will be with Tallulah, and it'll all be fine. Honestly, it will. We'll be talking more about TV as well later too. here we are. I've got us to Lula's house.
Thank you very much, Ed Young.
Yes.
Here's a little something, and here's a £10 note.
Oh, thank you. That's not as little as you. I beg to differ. Anyway, it's perfect. Right. Yeah. Well, I'll stay out in the car. I've heard that I need a bit of shut-eye before I drive you on again. Usually I would come in for some cake, but I don't know if there's going to be any cake today. So anyway, I hope you cope with seeing your number one or joint number one fan. I don't know.
If you hear me crying for help, for goodness sake, kick the door in.
Yes, I will. Don't worry. I'll have your.
If you can't get in the front, kick the back doors.
Yes, I'll have your. I will. I'll be thinking of you. All right. Come on. Stop talking at you, Uncle John. Come on, Warren. It's fine. Oh, here's Martin. Not Martin Holmes. Sniffy Martin. Tallulah son.
Hello.
Hello, not Martin Holmes.
Hello, yes, I'm not Martin Holmes. I'm Sniffy Martin because I like sniffing. Anyway, very glad that you could be here.
Do you like sniffing anything in particular?
Oh,
or is it
everything really. Smells are very interesting. I collect them. But anyway, Mum is she's very excited about seeing you again. So.
I bought her a posset, so I'm hoping it'll calm her down.
Yes, well, I hope so. Now, she's beginning to... I need to explain, but I know this whole business with the rival fan groups is causing problems, and I'm doing my best. At the moment, I think I'm the only other member of the fan group, of her fan group of you. And not that I'm not a fan, I'm a big fan, but obviously she kind of made me join the club as well. So I still like your autograph, so...
Well, what part of me would you like me to sign? What part of you, sorry, would you like me to sign?
Maybe my elbow. Yeah.
Hold on, let me get my scribbly thing out. Hold on.
Oh, thank you. Right, she'll be
there
safe.
you go. And where do you want me? And I'll sign yours there.
Thank you. Right, we better get in.
Oh dear. I might just sort of, wait on the doorstep just in case you need to make a...
Please do. We might need rescuing. I'm wondering whether I should tie a rope around my waist and put a plank of wood across my arse so I don't fall in.
And yet Uncle John can go, and then the car will shoot off. Maybe it'll be on water skis, sort of like, I don't know, I'm not sure how water skiing on
roller skates
would be better, because I don't think water skiing on gravel is going to be very good, but...
Oh, that could be interesting. I'll have gravel burn in places I wouldn't want gravel burn.
Oh, my darling, he's here. Hello, come in. Oh, my lovely one. How are you? Come in.
I'm fine, thank you very much. It's great to see you. You're looking absolutely wonderful. In fact, you're glowing.
You.
I don't know if it's because you've been stood with your face in the fire, but you are glowing.
I've been looking at photos of you, and it's made me all hot. Oh, well,
Well, mildly attractive, I wouldn't say hot.
Oh, stop it now. No, the Mr. Warren fan club of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, now we need to talk about the Mr. Warren fan club. We really do.
Oh, yes. I'm very proud of this fan club. We're just starting out early days, but yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how to put this.
Oh, put it wherever you like, my dear.
Oh, I'll put it on the table.
Oh,
there
my
you go.
goodness, it's bigger than I remember.
That brings tears to your ears. Listen, we need to talk about this rivalry because I don't like causing rivalry between people. That's not fair. And there's a little bit of rivalry going on, isn't there?
Just a little bit, but it's all Bettina. Because, you see, Bettina thinks that because she's a big film star, that she should have the right. But I actually came up with the idea of the fan club first. So, it's her you need to speak to. I don't mind, us joining together.
Well, there is the slight question of copyright, because I hold the copyright for me. And I don't want to upset anyone, but I want everyone to get on. And I don't think I need a fan club.
Do.
Because you can... No. People should just admire people from afar. They shouldn't look at them and think, oh, I could praise that. No.
Come on, give us a cuddle. Come on.
Oh, you're squashing me some
you're so
change.
nice.
Oh, dear, there goes my halfpenny.
Oh, dear.
Martin, how's he doing in there?
There's a cuddle situation going on.
And is he crying? Is anyone, either of them crying?
Well, there are definitely tears in Warren's eyes, but
I think perhaps we should get him. We should probably get him out of there quick. Come on.
Mother, please, let him go. Let him go.
That was the best moment of my life.
Come on, Warren. We need to get. Oh, come on. Let's get you back to the car. Oh dear.
Oh,
Mother, you mustn't squeeze him so much.
On my everything.
Tallulah, we'll speak to Bettina. I overheard what you were saying. I know she can be a bit forceful, so let's see if we can sort of But anyway, quick, get him out of here. Get him out of here.
Oh, my darlings, don't be strangers.
She's got a grip like that creature from 20,000 Leagues Under the Blimmin' Sea.
Get her back into that. Listeners,
look at the sucker marks on that part of
listeners,
me. Never get them out.
We'll play some music and then we'll go and park somewhere so we can talk about TV again whilst Warren gets his breath back. We'll be back in a minute. Oh dear. Yeah, I can see there's bruise marks. Blimey.
Bruisiness, chafing and hair stretch there. Look at that.
I love
Never
you.
suffered from that. Friction.
Mother.
So, listeners, your Uncle John is having a nap. So, Warren, how are you feeling? You look.
Well, I'm not feeling myself at the moment. I'll be doing that in the privacy of my own home later.
Your colours returned to your face. You were quite pale for a moment.
Yeah, my cheeks were pale, and so were the upper ones as well.
Oh dear. I think that we've at least achieved some sort of we've learnt a little bit of the background between, or at least we've heard from Tallulah that she. I know you don't agree with the whole fan club thing, but I don't think it's very difficult to patrol your own fan clubs because they just form up. I mean, I don't even have a fan club, so.
Paul, you should have a fan club.
I'm not sure I want one after I see if it's going to be that lot. But
I don't want groupies. This is the problem: gropers, but not groupies.
Yeah, but I don't know. I think it's one of those things where they were probably having a chat. I can imagine Bettina and Tallulah having a chat, and Tallulah mentions fan club, and Bettina then kind of takes over. She can be a little bit like that, as much as I love her. But anyway, so I think we need to talk to her. I'm not sure how we're going to turn around, but anyway, maybe if your Uncle John comes in with us. Look, anyway, we're going to talk about another year in TV, and this one I've also selected for us, and it's a year that means a lot to me because I was born in it. But yes, so 1973. So
1973.
Now, that was the year that Last of the Summer Wine started, which is a long-running comedy series, those who don't know. But this was a pilot episode, a 30-minute pilot on the Comedy Playhouse.
Was that on a plane? So they made it on a plane?
No, he was on a Comedy Playhouse, BBC One.
He's on top of the roof of a playhouse?
No. But it ran for 37 years. Actually, the same amount of years as Neighbours ran for.
Really? Did Neighbours go for that long?
Yes, it did. Yes, it
Heavens
did.
to Murgatroyd.
But there are probably even more jokes per episode. Then we have I see. So I know we'd already mentioned Sesame Street. Now it was broadcast in Northern Ireland on UTV for the first time in 1973. So I still finding doing these sorts of things sort of has probably explained to me the question I had in my mind of when I used to watch Sesame Street, why did everyone look so dated? It's because they were still showing quite early episodes. But, in the late 70s or early 80s, they were probably showing 70s episodes. That's why everyone looked so strange to a little child watching it.
I always felt like it was very multicultural, wasn't it? And I lived in a little village in the middle of nowhere. And I can remember the first time I saw a person who didn't have a white skin. And I must have been about 8 years old, and I shouted out the window, my parents in the car, not realising that's not the thing you did, because I was isolated in a rural environment. We didn't see, it wasn't multicultural. But when you look at something like Sesame Street, it is, isn't it? And I realised I was thinking about this the other day. I sat watching it as a kid, and I realised that I was introduced to multiculturalism before I realised it, watching Sesame Street.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to live in America after Sesame Street, because I was convinced there was like a 9-foot yellow bird walking down up every street.
It's like
Crikey, you'd have to follow it with a shovel, though.
I used to like that. I used to like the Snuffleupagus.
Snuffleupagus! Yeah, that was like one of those giant Hoovers, wasn't it? It's like Henry Hoover.
Yeah. 1973 was also when Whatever Happened to the Likely Lads started.
Whatever happened to the Likely Lads?
It's not easy to say that. Now, that was a sequel series to a show called The Likely Lads, which was from the 60s, for those of you who don't know. And also in January, the Open University awards its first degrees. I guess that makes sense, because I guess when we did 1970, we may have that's probably when we mentioned Open University, and if it's a 3-year degree, that's about right.
Yeah.
February 1973, The Wombles, the stop-motion animation show narrated by Bernard Cribbins, began.
Legendary programme. Spawned a couple of films, spawned a #1 hit as well, didn't it? I had the album.
Oh, I love the Wombles. Yeah. Still do. When I was at university, said this before, I had a tape which on one side had Led Zeppelin, and who I didn't know much about at the time, and I still don't know that much. And on the other side was the Wombles, and definitely played the Wombles, far more than I ever played Led Zeppelin. So that's official. Led Zeppelin are inferior to the Wombles.
Well, I think Led Zeppelin would probably agree with you, and they were probably be massive Womble fans as well, to be honest.
February 73 is also when Some Mothers Do Have Them. Do you have them?
Oh, I remember watching that, and I'm crying with laughter.
Yeah, that was with Michael Crawford as playing Frank Spencer. I don't know if Some Mothers Do Have Them is a show that got, like I Being Served got shown in the States. I don't know if Some Mothers Do Have Them did as well. I mean, Michael Crawford became quite well known beyond just the UK, but whether that was more for his work in theatre, I'm not sure.
Yeah, he was an avid. I mean, he almost used television as his paycheck, and as theatre as the place to really, because he was Phantom, wasn't he, for so many years. And I think he gained a big reputation for being Phantom. I remember going to see him as Barnum in the 80s. I really enjoyed that. And that was at Her Majesty's Theatre as well, before it became the theatre that's been constantly used for Phantom of the Opera. Equally, though, I went to see Bugsy Malone there, so I don't think it counts. I'm trying to see where it says it.
It's definitely shown in Australia, Nigeria, Catalonia, New Zealand. It doesn't really mention whether it was
You speak in
shown
America, though, in New Zealand, Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah.
But again, it's a lot of 70s programmes, aren't they, are very travelable between New Zealand and sort of Australia, because those were the markets of English-speaking countries that would really buy the programmes that we made.
Would you like to know some of the people who were considered for the role of Frank Spencer before Michael Crawford?
No, let's move on.
One of them, and
Yes,
you
please.
really can't imagine this. One of them was Ronnie Barker. You can't imagine him
I
on roller
can't
skates.
imagine him doing the stunts. I really can't.
Now, Norman Wisdom, I can imagine him doing the stunts, because he is kind of, that character is very similar to that sort of character as Norman Wisdom played.
Don't you think he'd be too much every time he would do things like there's that bit where he's holding on to the back of the bus? I can now hear him doing, I ain't got the change in his pocket on the back of this bus, doing it in that Norman Wisdom voice. Yeah. And the problem is you lose that illusion then, because you only associate that type of voice with Norman, don't you? But he did his own stunts. He was rather good, wasn't he?
Yeah. Another one was David Jason, but he wasn't considered famous enough in 1973 to be the lead.
He did a lot, though, in the 70s, didn't he, David Jason? He really worked hard for his art.
Yeah. What else have we got? I think I mentioned this just a minute ago. Are You Being Served?
Not regularly.
It began its first regular series. The pilot had been 6 months before, so in 72. And also the pilot episode of Open All Hours. That was also one part of something called 7 of 1.
Right.
So that was aired. So a lot of these shows did. Also, I didn't realise this was in the same series. Apparently, Open All Hours and Porridge were all part of the same series of 7 of 1 in the same year. The pilot episode of Porridge is called Prisoner and Escort. So he got two series out of that little series,
making a bit of money,
pilots. Yeah. April 73. The much loved The Tomorrow People begins. Show that killed off Ace of Wands. Not that I'm bitter.
He didn't sound bitter about that.
I wasn't even born, so there's nothing I could have done. If I was alive, I would have put my foot down. I could hear
you sharpening the knife.
I would have put my foot down, but I wasn't.
Put your foot down with a firm hand.
I would. Yeah, I wouldn't have allowed it to happen. But
quite right.
Well, they could have had both, but they shouldn't have got rid of Ace of Wands. Apparently, May 73, Sesame Street airs on Westwood Television.
Westwood, yes, that used to be my regional TV station. It was a very small one. It was based in, I think it was based in Devon somewhere. I think it might be in Plymouth.
Yeah, it ran from 61 to 81. Is that anything to do with Sapphire and Steel getting axed, or was that Southern, or was that the same thing?
No. Sapphire and Steel was Central in the end, wasn't it? But it was ATV before then.
Lots of shows and stuff. BBC Two starts to air MASH in May 73, and the magazine show That's Life makes its debut. Now, listeners in the States will know what MASH is, but they will not necessarily know what That's Life is. It was a sort of magazine, sort of consumer program.
It was, yeah. It was, and it was a very good thing for light-hearted presentation. But when it could be serious, it changed the law a lot over in this country. There was a lot of things it changed the law on because it was viewed by so many people and it was so loved that whenever they suggested something, the government of the day actually took notice of it.
Didn't Childline,
yes,
phone line that kids could ring if they were being abused or bullied or whatever, that sort of came out of that. That still exists to this day, I presume. I may be wrong about that, but I imagine it still does, or something similar to it. June 73, the long-running children's sports-themed game show We Are the Champions airs.
We Are the Champions.
I just remember that. I think, I again, too sporty for me, but I did quite like when they had to jump in the swimming pool at the end.
Yeah, well, they say, away you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was more like a sort of children's version of It's a Knockout, so it wasn't a sport. It was the more... If sports could have been more like that, I mean,
it's not a programme you'd show nowadays because it has children in the swimming pool, isn't it?
But it made sport look a bit more interesting than it actually was.
More exciting and fun because it was sort of competitive sport, but it wasn't silly. It was silly competitive sport. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Now, we were talking about Softly Softly, and this is another spin-off of Softly Softly. It's Jack the Ripper, which was a 6-part sort of retelling of the story, but it had the characters from Softly Softly, Barlow and Watt, investigating it. Or I do actually own it, but I haven't seen it from end to end yet, so I can't describe it. Perhaps
it's worth watching. It's really, really good.
Yeah.
It's dramatised as well. It's done it as a reconstruction, as well as Barlow and Watt being the senior officers doing the reconstruction of the murder inside. We actually have cutaways to reconstructions of the actual events themselves using character actors. And there's a lot of character actors in that, a heck of a lot. But it's it's a really, really good series. It's in 6 parts. And whilst I'm talking to you, I'm desperately trying to remember the name of the series, and I can't remember, and I'm really going to get murdered for not knowing it.
We're going to shout.
Second Verdict is the name of the series for that.
Now, in August 1973, James Beck, who stars as Private Walker in Dad's Army, dies of a burst pancreas at the age of 44.
Yes.
They continue the series, but they don't recast that character. I don't know how much had been filmed or whatever, but the 6th series of Dad's Army is also shown around the same time, or a month or two later, and there's the famous episode with Don't Tell Him Pike, which...
The Deadly Attachment, yes.
I don't know if that's an episode with or without Private Walker, but
I believe that one's without Walker, isn't it?
Yeah. Dad's Army, for those who don't know, being a famous British sitcom about.
Well, they're civil defence. What we would refer to as civil defence, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a load of what we would say is old duffers who are well past their date of being able to call up to go to any kind of conflict, and so they've decided to defend Britain as civil defence. But when they mean defending Britain, it's rather comical ways. They haven't got the resources, and there's no sort of modern guns and things. And it's exactly how it was during the Second World War.
Again, I'm not sure if it's one that would have been shown so much in America.
Well, they did there was the episode that they made for America, didn't they? Which they were going to use to sell, and it didn't quite come about. It doesn't quite work.
We also have in August the first episode of Man About the House.
Oh, I love Man About the House. Sorry, it's a wonderful series.
Yeah, I like George and Mildred even more, but I do own Man About the House and Robin's Nest, but Man About the House and George and Mildred are interlinked anyway, aren't they? Yes, that's right. Yeah,
which is wonderful because they're just a series that moves on from Man About the House.
And there were it's one of those ones where Three's Company, the American series, is a remaking of or a reboot or whatever of Man About the House. So. I don't know whether they'd have ever shown the actual original episodes, but they certainly used it as an idea. It's also August 73 is when ITV started showing Kung Fu, starring David Carradine.
Oh Lord, yes, Kung Fu.
They must have been. It wasn't really my cup of tea, but I definitely remember seeing the character. So I guess they must have been sort of still showing it well, I don't know how many seasons it ran for 3 seasons, but they must have still been. So it ran from 72 to 75, and it sounds like they started showing it relatively soon after it started, but it must have been still being repeated well into the late 70s. 62 episodes. But yeah, sort of westerny and probably martial arts, and not really my cup of tea, but I definitely remember seeing it on. Now, children's magazine style program Why Don't You airs for the first time in the school holidays of 73. I mean, that went on for years and years.
That was something that used to drive me crazy, because they had this tagline: why don't you go switch off the television set and go do something less boring instead? So if they did that, we wouldn't be watching the programme, which really used to annoy me. Plus, I didn't like Why Don't You, because it was a kids' programme with kids were the presenters.
Yes.
And they just didn't enthuse any excitement or, yes, I'm interested in what I'm doing. And it always used to be running this, like, shed.
Also, there's lots of them together, and as an only child at that stage, well, I wasn't born at this point, but by the time I did watch it, I was probably an only child, and although I would have had friends, I was quite happy to do things by myself. I certainly didn't want to deal with a big mob of noisy, screaming brats.
Yeah, that's what they were. Yeah, I'm an only child, so I know exactly where you're coming from.
It's sort of. So some of us quite enjoyed our own company and could easily find things to do when we didn't need a TV programme. One of the most interesting things about it is that Russell T Davies, who obviously went on to Queer as Folk and Doctor Who and all sorts of other programmes, began. Well, I'm not sure if he began his career, but he was a producer and director for it.
Was he really?
He was, yes. Probably towards.
Poor sod.
It ran until 95. I imagine it probably got more interesting when he took over. He probably would have tried to shake it up a bit and change it around a bit, but I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I presume that's what he did. We also have The Goodies. Well, this is a really weird one. September, The Goodies makes its debut in Zambia. There you go.
As you do.
Yeah. In October 73, Pat Phoenix left... who played Elsie Tanner on Coronation Street. She left after 13 years, although she returned again in 76. I think in a previous episode we'd mentioned her returning, but now we've mentioned her leaving before that return. What else have we got? Oh, they by November, actually 2 days after I was born, the first series run of Last of the Summer Wine begins. So that pilot had gone to series. There was live coverage of the wedding of Princess Anne and Mark Phillips on the 14th
Captain
of November.
Mark Phillips, yes.
Other than other shows that might have started, I think we've covered a lot of them though. Lizzie Dripping, I think I've got that on DVD. I've never watched it, but
I've never watched Lizzie Dripping. Oh, well, I have watched Lizzie Dripping the first time it came out, but I don't think my memory is going to be as good as it.
Was that with Tina Heath, who later became a Blue Peter presenter?
She was, yes. Lord, yes. But she was only she was very briefly a Blue Peter. Did she get pregnant?
She got pregnant. Yeah. I think they almost feel like they brought her in to kind of go. Right, now we can look at a lady getting pregnant and how different she'll look by the end. Sort of thing.
The fetus gestates in a box under the bed.
which
that's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, which Petra, the repeated dog, sometimes sleeps in. Jack and Jill, the little cats, I used to like them. They were silver tabbies. They were very nice.
I can't remember them.
Yeah,
I remember Petra going.
Shep. Anyway, we're back to Blue Peter.
Oh no,
Moonbase 3, 1973.
See, I was too young to remember that. But I have got the DVD. I have watched it, and it's intelligent science fiction, isn't it? There's no monsters or anything like that, but it's intelligent science fiction, and I like it. I actually like Moonbase 3. People used to say, "Oh, it's slow and it's boring," but it's not. It's actually based in science.
Thriller begins in 73.
The ITV series?
Yeah. That's like an anthology show, sort of with
Well, Tales of the Unexpected, wasn't it?
Yeah, but longer, and I think sort of like an hour and 10 minutes. So, because I think it was sold to America so that they could probably turn it into like a 90-minute. But they put adverts in. They
put a 90-minute type TV film, isn't it?
Yeah, it was created by Brian Clemens, who'd created the Avengers as well. So, but yeah, I do. The only thing that annoys me about it is there's quite a few episodes.
Did Brian Clements create the Avengers, or was it Sidney Newman?
Oh well, we'll come back to that another day.
I'll throw that grenade in.
Yes, I probably should have thought more carefully about it.
He fell into my trap.
Yeah, there's 43 episodes of Thriller, so they do, and because they're almost like mini movies. They're quite. It's quite a lot to pack in 3 years. But the only thing that annoys me is that in 3 years, the title sequence never really changed. Well, each episode has an individual title sequence because it's a still of a location from the episode. But I kind of would have liked to have seen a bit of. I love a series where the title sequence evolves over a period of time, and I guess perhaps because it was only they did a lot of it, but over quite a short amount of time, they never got around to thinking about changing the style of the title sequence. Dear oh dear. Well, I think that's enough. I think we need to get Uncle John up and head over and emerge at Bettina's house. Yeti Uncle John, are you awake? I've been listening. I was fascinated. Yes.
Yeah.
Well,
how are you, Yeti Uncle John?
I'm fine. I'm more worried about you, mate. How are you doing?
My bits are still intact. Here, have a fist pump.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. You're good at pumping, aren't you?
I am, and I understand how this whole business is very concerning for you, but I hope perhaps.
Well, I'm keeping my end up.
Yes, I'm quite happy to. It's very difficult because Bettina is a married lady. Not that married ladies can't have, sort of fan clubs for pin-ups that they like, but some husbands wouldn't put up with it, but that's a bit old-fashioned. August's a very laid-back fellow.
I'm not a pin-up, I'm like an old put-me-up bed. You stretch me out and I got lumps in the wrong places.
I just think we just need to appeal to her betterness, Go on, get in there. I'll wait here in the car. All right, listeners. We'll play a little bit of music, and then we come there. We'll be entering Bettina's abode.
I'm not going in through the front passage.
Hello, it's me, August Evans. Oh, how are you? Oh, it's Mr. Warren and Mr. Paul, and is the Uncle John in the car? Is he staying in the car?
I think he is.
Yeah, I think it's the safest place for him. Yeah.
I guess you're here about the fan club business. Well, I'll leave you to it. I've got to go and paint some rhododendrons. So because it's the wrong time of year for oh dear, I can't even say it now. I'll let you get on.
All right, August. Fine. Okay. Come in. Oh, I didn't expect. Ick, what are you doing here?
Hello, I'm here. Do come in. I'm Bettina's second in command in the Uncle Warren fan club. Yes.
Oh, Lord.
Yes.
Look, this is getting a bit out of hand now, I think.
I've got lots of hands.
Yes, I know. He is very handsy, to use a modern phrase.
We're just very much fans of your work. Yes, we love your sausage.
Oh, darling, is he here? Oh, Warren, do come in. Oh, how lovely. We've got a spread for you here.
Well, you've spread well, haven't you?
Yes, darling. Oh dear. I think you met August just then.
Yes.
He's fully he's fully behind me when it comes to your fan club. He likes to see me have a hobby. And you make quite a distracting hobby.
Would you like to take a seat? I think we need to have a little word.
Okay, I'd love to hear you speak. Go on.
What type of word would you like? No, we need to talk about this fan club business. It's getting a little bit out of hand.
Yes. Tell me more.
I think because there's a bit of rivalry going on between two factions here, isn't there? Now, I think you just all need to calm down a little bit because, I'm not worth having a fan club over.
I beg to differ.
You can beg us for it as much as you like, but I will not differ.
Darling, do you like my new glasses?
Are they pint or half pint?
They're X-ray.
Okay, right. It's a good job I'm wearing lead line Y fronts, isn't it? You can't see.
Oh, I'm naughty, I know, but Aunt Kathy sent me them. She said that they would wind you up. Oh no, darling, it's all perfectly innocent. I think it's perfectly innocent, isn't it, Ick?
Oh yes, perfectly innocent. I don't think those X-ray glasses to work at all. Don't worry, Warren.
Dear, oh dear. I do hope not, because, these days, members of show business get into trouble for being inappropriate, and I don't want you guys to... I think perhaps it's too late for that, but listen, what we are trying to say is that Warren isn't that keen about having a fan club at all, but I guess to a certain extent it should be in his hands, but it isn't with these fan club type things.
Well, it's not in my hands at the moment because then I've got my hands in my pockets.
That's what it is.
Bettina, she's been drinking.
I think so.
Look, what we are saying is that Warren is happy to sanction a fan club. And I know you're not, Warren, but please, we need to. We can't just ban this thing. It could work towards your favour. Look, Warren.
I don't want any favours.
But we could try and turn it into a fan club for the cinematic sausage. You see, your podcast.
And I don't think it's that kind of sausage they're after.
I know, but if we can get more fans, maybe it will dilute the sausage, the sausaginess. Look,
meaty goodness.
Yes. So please, Bettina, can we not just join the two groups up? I mean, the thing is that Tallulah says that it was kind of her idea and you sort of stole it.
She'd be right. It is naughty of me. I won't lie, but I just felt that I had more experience with these sorts of things, having been in show business and still in show business to a certain extent. Warren, I hate to see you upset, so we will agree. I will speak to Tallulah. We will make the group one little group, and we'll make it about the cinematic sausage. But we will still expect a few signed photographs, and we'll make.
I think we can do that. I will sign a sausage,
and maybe the odd cuddle now and again. All right.
We'll debate about a couple in the future if it's going to calm things down. That's
okay,
what we'll
right.
do, yes.
Well, I think that's fine. No, I think it's been lovely. I don't think you've got time for Bettina's spread, have you? Unless you just grab a few things and stick them in your pocket, and then.
It's a cottage roll.
Yeah.
Oh, darling, we're having to rush already.
Well, maybe we'll all reunite at the end of the episode once everything is, fine and sorted. We've got one last year to talk about TV. So, and anyway.
Oh, right, darling. I'm sorry we've caused trouble.
Yes, we're so sorry.
That's all right. I just don't want anyone to get hurt and upset. That's the important thing.
Fighting the duck pond.
Oh, darling, don't mention that.
Oh, I heard about your
that was one too many gin and tonics, darling. I think Tallulah appreciated the physical contact. That's what I can say.
Oh gosh! Right, let's get going, Warren. Your Uncle John's waiting for us outside.
I think so.
And yes,
thank you. Take care.
Oh,
Take care of yourself.
I'll see you later, big boy.
Oh dear. Come on, let's go. Our listeners, we're going to play some music.
Let's Uncle John rev that engine.
Yes, we'll play some music, and then when we come back, we'll talk about one last year in music, one last year in TV. Yes.
The fear's got to you already. They say you can smell fear. I can smell it.
So, Warren, I think we've probably reached the best sort of resolution of this problem that we could have hoped for. So,
I think it's what they call brinkmanship, isn't it?
But I mean, if it can bring some attention to your podcast, then it can't be a totally bad thing. I don't mean to be mean about them, but sometimes these fan clubs start and then, they go along for a little bit and then there's some new star comes along. Yes. So I think ultimately it's just best to sort of play, to sort of compromise.
Let's hope for a new star to come along.
Hello, over here. Never mind. Look, we're going to talk about one more year in TV.
Yep.
I'm going for 1987 this time. So we've done one we've done 60s, 70s and 80s this episode. So 1987.
I had highlights in my hair in 1987 and it was spiky.
We were talking about this in a recent episode we recorded with Nick, which you may have heard by now, listeners. I think 1987 you knew Nick, but I don't know if that was the year I think I just about met Nick, but I probably hadn't quite met you, Warren, but nearly.
88, I think we met each other. Yeah, because I passed my driving test in 88.
Now, January the 1st, New Year's Day highlights on BBC included, on BBC One, included the network television premiere of Local Hero and the classic film To Have and Have Not. Isn't To Have and Have Not? That's from 1944. So
that was a long premiere, I can tell you. We were talking about this before, where it's 5 years since so-and-so James Bond film came out. But that's ridiculous. Do you think everyone would have known the plot by then?
Yeah, I think so. Spoilers. Also making its debut was the Japanese-American animated series Thundercats on BBC One.
Thundercats.
Because I went to a certain school when I was 11 and... well, because I went to a private school for 2 years before I went to Bishop's.
Very private.
Grammar school.
Private school? I never knew you went to private school.
Only for 2 years. I went to primary school until I was 11, then failed my 11 plus, and then I went to a private school so I could do my 13 plus. Because you couldn't really go to the local comprehensive and say, oh, by the way, after 2 years I want to do this exam to try and leave you. So the only way of doing that was to go to a private school.
I'd never heard of the 13 plus.
Yeah, I passed that. And I went to the grammar school. So anyway, I didn't get on well with the private school because having been at a quiet little primary school for like whatever many years with only about 60 pupils in the whole school, so I was a real fish out of water. But we also didn't used to finish school until 5:30 and had to have school on Saturday
mornings. Yes.
So basically what I'm saying is that from 1980
you were a slave to education, weren't you?
Yeah, I never saw any kids' TV after about 1985. But my brother, he was of the age group that I remember Thundercats being very much his thing for a while. So
they were very 80s. Thundercats were.
Yeah, he would have been about 5 when Thundercats came on TV. Same month, January 1987, the network television premiere of Poltergeist.
Oh, that's a scary film. Have you ever seen Poltergeist?
Yeah, I'm sure I have.
That's one of those films that really put the willies up me. That child with their hand on the TV screen going, they're here. That really, because I used to watch a lot of late night telly and sometimes used to fall asleep, and when television stations closed down over here, we used to get that static on the screen, and every time I used to wake up I used to be terrified thinking the Poltergeist was going to come out of the television set.
January 87 as well, EastEnders was sold to Australia, along with In Sickness and in Health, which is a later spin-off of
Death Us Do Part,
Death Us Do Part, which we talked about earlier, I think. And also in January, Inspector Morse, the based on the books by Colin Dexter, makes its debut on ITV.
Did you like Morse?
I don't think I watched it at the time, but we own it at the moment. We own it. Well, we have a copy in my flat, and there was a stage when we started watching from the beginning. So I have seen the first year or two.
I have to say the first Morse that I watched, or the first Morse that was on, had Pat Troughton in, and that is the only reason I watched it. And he sort of gets murdered about half the way through. So
I think I was more into the Bergeracs than Morse. He was a bit too serious, and probably on a bit later in the evening as well.
Yeah, Death of Jericho was the first one.
It's funny because it ran until 2000, and so that covers a period where I had friends. I didn't go to Oxford University, but I had friends who did, and so there were episodes of Sutton Park that we filmed in Oxford at the same time as they would have been making Inspector Morse. And because I had a friend who went to one of the colleges, we were able to use Magdalen College as a backdrop and film up the tower, and obviously none of it sanctioned by the college at all, but because my friend was a student there, we even filmed in the library in the Bodleian. I think there used to be, there may still be, a rolling stack of shelves, and we did a cliffhanger where it looked like one of us was going to get crushed between the stacks, and Bodleian Library doesn't know anything about that either. But it happened nearly 30 years ago, so please don't sue me. But you see, it was my mate's fault. I wouldn't have got anything out of me for him. I can give you his address. No. Anyway.
Give it me on a postcard later.
Yes. Princess Anne, February 1970. No, she appeared on A Question of Sport.
Oh, she hit the short fellow with her handbag, didn't she? She sloshed him.
He got it looks like there was something about one of the other captains mistaking her for somebody, and it got 19 million viewers anyway, so people were very easily pleased.
Well, royals don't do television.
No.
For some reason, she decided to go on A Question of Sport, one of the most boring programmes in the world, because it's about sport. Sorry if you like sports. Sorry. We all like sports, but sorry if you like sport.
It was a very nice chocolate bar called Sport. Well, it was very boring. That was pretty boring as well. Just a
chocolate bar called Sport? I don't remember.
I think there was.
I'm going to have to look that up now. You're making it up.
It's a very boring biscuit chocolate thing. As boring as Sport. So, what was I going to say? February 1987. A very inebriated Oliver Reed appears on Aspel and Company.
Now, Aspel and Company, yes, I remember watching that. And I was like, oh, because he staggers on with a jug, his shirt undone to his midriff, with that huge out-of-control ginger beard, stamping his feet to Wild Ones, started singing, does his drunken number. Michael Aspel, looking terrified, sits down at the table. Michael Aspel turns to him and says, "Thank you very much," to run the titles. And the show finished early. I remember that.
Oh dear. The David Lynch's film The Elephant Man makes its debut on BBC One.
Did you?
That was from 1980.
Did you ever watch that?
I don't think it was. I'm a David Lynch film, but more of the Twin Peaks sort of Mulholland Drive type. But I don't know if I've ever seen The Elephant Man.
Elephant Man is a wonderful, wonderful film. Very emotional. You go through layers of emotions of anger, sympathy, regret even, and fear. And it just has such a sad ending.
Now, March 1987, the debut of French and Saunders on BBC Two, which was very instrumental to some of my friendships at school. In that we used to, my friend Harry and I used to have script books of French and Saunders and other comedy shows at the time, and we would sit there and one of us would take Jennifer's lines and one of us would take Dawn's lines, and we'd just sort of do our own versions of the sketches. We liked it so much. Also, late March 1987, Opportunity Knocks returns to television after a decade-long break. It's presented by Bob Monkhouse.
Bob Monkhouse, yeah.
Now, the main thing, I guess, that I should say about that is Opportunity Knocks is kind of basically the forerunner of Britain's Got Talent, or those sort of...
well, I wouldn't even say it's as good as that.
But I wouldn't have watched it then any more than I watch it now, because that was very family entertainment.
It used to be originally hosted by a very oily figure by the name of Hughie Green. I mean, that's mush and silly, folks. His daughter was very famous, wasn't she? And she denied that he was his father. And she was a presenter on Channel 4. Can't remember her name.
Paula Yates.
Paula Yates, that's it. And she denied that she was connected to him in any shape or form, because he was a bit of a shady, dodgy character.
Now, in April 1987, Through the Keyhole, David Frost and Lloyd Grossman. I don't know whether that ever transferred to other countries, but that was basically where you'd be shown where Lloyd Grossman, or David Frost would be in the studio, Lloyd Grossman would be going around the house of a celebrity, and then there was then people in the studio. I think were they famous as well? They had to guess who it was. I guess there were clues. They were going around the house. There would be clues about whose house it would be. It could be like a particular guitar that was associated with a particular rock star, maybe, or at least it would give you clue. But I do remember, I must have watched that a bit, because I remember I used to do the who would live in I can't do it anymore. Who would live in a house like this in Lloyd Grossman's accent? But
Lloyd Grossman always spoke as if he'd got a mouthful of food, didn't he?
Yeah, and I definitely used to mimic him, but it's been such a long time I can't remember how he sounds now. But,
I mean, people loved watching it because they were nosy buggers.
So what else have we got? Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends was sold to Australia. That was the show that my brother loved before Thundercats.
I used to collect the books as a small child, but I quite like Ringo Starr's voice in that. It's very sort of melodic.
April 1987, the final edition of Saturday morning children's show Saturday Superstore is broadcast on BBC One. That was the replacement. That was the
Mike UKIP, wasn't it? And
that sort of took over from Multicoloured Swap Shop. And what is it with these the Saturday morning children's show presenters who sort of in 2022 have more eccentric reputations?
Yeah, I think it's just an age thing. They seem to go through this. Yeah. Or is it a case of that their fame is dying and they need to sort of stoke up something for people to remind them that they're still here?
Maybe they had midlife crises that were never properly diagnosed, and they just mutated.
That's Noel Edmonds.
Yeah.
Noel Edmonds was a bit like one of our politicians. He would never go.
Yeah.
He would always crop up somewhere.
But in the 70s and early 80s, he had quite a good reputation as being funny, and a TV presenter I certainly remember liking when I was growing up. But then ended up doing shows that you couldn't get far enough away from by the 90s.
Are you talking about Crinkly Back End?
Yes, and Mr. Blobby and all those sorts of things.
You would put the television on, and that Mr. Blobby would appear, and you would go, why are people even countenancing giving it time on the air? Why is it popular?
Yeah. What else do we have? Oh, the final April '87, the final episode of The Tube, the Channel 4 music program.
That stopped. Unfortunately, I saw the trailer for that. That shut it all down.
Oh, did
a young Jules Holland. I don't know whether I should repeat it because he says rude word.
I can never remember whether that's something that stopped it being live or whether that's what stopped the whole show, because it did run for 5 years, and I thought by '87 it was almost forgotten or very, very. But I can never quite remember the history and the sort of not the notorious elements of it.
Well, because Channel 4 was a public broadcaster, and the government at the time really did not like Channel 4 because it was doing a lot of alternative things. And I think they quite liked the staid BBC-type status quo that there was. And the fact that there's this young upstart of a TV station that's come along that initially didn't have a very good start, started to attract a big audience of young people. And they were quite radical in their outlook. And I don't think the government really liked them much. And Jules Holland did this live trailer that was shown on CITV at about 5:10, I think it was. He said afterwards he didn't realise it was going out late, and he only said it as a joke because he thought it was a rehearsal. So it was him and Paulie Yates. And they do their bit for the Tube, and he thought the next bit was going to be cut out. But because it was going out live and he wasn't told it was going out live, and he said, "Yeah, watch it, all you young effers." Put the word of your choice in there. And that's what killed it. There was a great hoorah.
Yeah, it sounds like, as it said, yes, I'm looking at Wikipedia and it says that is the case. But it was also, it wasn't doing as well by the time that happened either. So it was it was a bit, because '87 always seems quite late that it was still going. I think I was really aware of. My music tastes weren't really just sort of becoming contemporary by '87 anyway. I'd been more interested in the '60s music for a lot of the '80s. What else have we got? April 1987, the Australian soap Prisoner Cell Block H makes its debut on Central.
That always used to be on quite late in the evening, didn't it?
Yeah. This is believed by many viewers to be the series' debut on British television, but in fact it had been running in the Yorkshire area since 1984. Central was the first region to conclude the series in December 1991. So it was a bit of a trickle effect, and I think so. It looks like Yorkshire had it for ages, but perhaps hadn't been going on about it, and then Central took it, and then maybe other, and then eventually all different regions showed it, but at different times. In fact, it never finished showing on TVS, which I was really annoyed about because I went to university and my mum would still be recording it for me. And when I went up, by the time I went up to university and was in the Central region, they'd already finished showing it and were starting again. So I didn't have very good TV reception, but I started watching it. I think they didn't show the whole thing again all the way through. I don't know how many episodes they showed, but I did. That was the first time I got to see the really early stuff, at least for a few weeks or months. But then back in TVS, I found out that they'd lost the rights to it, and then later on Channel 5 started showing it, and then I didn't have Channel 5. And when it got rough, I kept an eye on the TV schedules, and when it roughly got to the point where I'd stopped seeing it, I got Mr. Goodman to record it for me. And he clearly remembers, because by that point he was with his now wife Ali, who's been on the show, and he remembers like the videotapes sometimes like running out at 3 o'clock in the morning, and then the sound of his really noisy video player waking them both up, as it was because they were probably in his.
You're a harsh friend making them do that. Well,
I didn't make them do it, but I was very glad they did. And actually, they were saying that they actually got into it in those last few months when they were doing it for me. I have very dedicated friends. what else have we got? We need to get through this. There's quite a lot of things. May 87, launch of the late night discussion programme After Dark on Channel 4, which is broadcast live and is notable for having no scheduled end.
That's where the guests got extremely drunk and would throw abuse at each other.
Yeah. In May, Ireland's Johnny Logan wins the Eurovision Song Contest with Hold Me Now. I think that might be the second time he won. A soppy ballad. What else have we got? There was another music show. I don't know if this was partly due to the tube ending. Debut of the Tyne Tees produced chart show The Roxy, presented by David Jensen and Kevin Sharkey. The show is intended as a stablemate for the network chart show.
Oh, I don't remember that.
With a similar format to Top of the Pops. It was cancelled by April.
It's so good it was cancelled.
It was cancelled by April 88, so it barely lasted. Well, it didn't even last a year. This is the year of. We were talking about this earlier. June 87, debut of the Grand Knockout Tournament of It's a Knockout. That's that royal special that we were talking about.
Oh yeah.
It was deemed to be a failure, but it did raise £1 million for charity, so not entirely a failure.
A failure to them would be ratings, but success to everybody else would be the fact that it raised £1 million for charity. Isn't it interesting how TV companies rate things differently to us mere mortals?
Okay.
It didn't make any money for us, but look, it made some money for charity. We'll have to, I suppose we'll have to grin and bear that and put that out as a high point. Yeah, it's weird how people look at things.
In June 87, Family Fortunes returns to ITV, now with Les Dennis as a presenter. Family Fortunes is, I guess it probably is a format that has been duplicated in other countries, maybe with different names, maybe the same name. But it would be families pitched against each other, and like you'd have questions like, I don't know, name a famous queen or king or something, and then they'd have done a poll, and people would have said who
50 people said
yeah. Well, then the people then you'd have the teams would have to suggest what the possible suggestions have been,
and you get the right divots on there that would be so terrified because they're on telly, would just say the first thing that comes into their head.
Like name a famous person.
Turkey.
Turkey.
There is a guy that answers all his questions with Turkey in one of them, and it's terrible.
Yeah. Apparently, in July they started showing the second season of Miami Vice. For some reason, after the first season, they'd had a hiatus for a year. I don't know why.
Crockett and Tubbs.
Yeah, I know that really wasn't my sort of thriller. I don't think. I would have probably preferred Dempsey and Makepeace. I was sort of our version of Miami Vice.
Dempsey and Makeshift, as we used to call it. Yes.
Just a minute. It might have been something to do with because it also says later in August, the BBC takes Miami Vice off the air initially for 3 weeks, then they take it off completely for 10 months due to ongoing debate about screen violence.
Ooh. Well, what do you expect if you buy an American cop show? There is going to be violence in there, especially one that's shown after the watershed.
Yes, yeah. Dennis Potter, Brimstone and Treacle, originally scheduled in 1976, gets finally scheduled. August 1987, the final episode of Terry and June is broadcast. And in September 1987, Sylvester McCoy becomes the seventh actor to play Doctor Who. But he's not the seventh. He's not the seventh actor to play the Doctor, but he's anyway.
The Doctor he is, not Doctor Who.
Yes.
I always like to say that he does. He is playing the Doctor, but not Doctor Who. Only one actor played Doctor Who.
Yes, Peter Cushing. Rowan Atkinson stars in the third series of Blackadder, which is set in the Georgian era. There's a US version, Top of the Pops, that makes its debut on CBS, but I don't think it does particularly well. And Going Live replaces what's it called? Saturday Superstore. That's got Philip Schofield and Sarah Green. Now, I think Sarah Green crossed over because she'd been a Blue Peter presenter. She'd also been on Saturday Superstore. Yes, in October was when we had the storms, and Michael Fish, the weather forecaster, or whatever you call it, meteorologist, played down how bad he thought it was going to be, and then it was really bad. I
remember that well. We nearly lost our roof.
Oh dear. There was a groundbreaking episode of EastEnders with a gay kiss in November 1987, but there'd been gay kisses in Australian soap operas years before that. But never mind. Everyone thinks they've discovered the. I guess, to be fair, they weren't soaps that were shown in the UK, so the UK press might be forgiven for not knowing about them. But dear, oh dear. December, The Singing Detective is sold to Australia. Quite a lot of shows being sold to Australia this year.
Australia does get a lot of our output.
And we get a lot of hits. We used to.
Oh yeah.
Thanks Channel 5.
Output all you can.
Anyway, well, there are other things we could say about 87, but I can see that I'm getting signs from outside that we need to be saying goodbye. But I very much appreciate that all you've put up with this episode.
No, it's fine. It's fine.
And I'm hoping that we've sort of managed to resolve a lot of the problems. But anyway, well, next time you come back, I promise it'll be a lot more relaxed and it'll be fine.
It's been a pleasure, Paul. Been an absolute pleasure. Always is.
Well, listeners, we're back again soon with a couple of episodes in the can, and we'll say goodbye for now. All right, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Well, I'm terribly sorry. I feel bad for not sort of pinning my rosette to one or other of the fan groups, but sounds like I'm a bit late anyway because they've successfully united, haven't they? So I was wondering if you had any sort of thoughts about merchandise. I'm very good. I'm very good with merchandise. What would you like your face on? I mean, a T-shirt, a baseball cap. What appeals to you?
I would love to be on that bottom of the tankard. That when you get to the bottom of the tankard, it's got my face on it.
Now, I think you'll need to. Either. I mean, I don't know if you know, but I'm actually quite a renowned photographer as well as being Surrey's best taxi driver. You can either choose a photo of your liking, or I think preferably you could pop over and we could do a little candid, photography session. No charge. It'll be fine. What I was
any particular outfit you want me to wear?
That little tiger thing. Yeah, little tiger costume you had that time. Anyway, we can't talk about that. Stop it. I was wondering, do you remember them pens where there's like a picture of a lovely lady and you turn it upside down? I was thinking we could do a pen like that, but with you. I mean,
you want to turn me upside down?
Well, I'm just thinking of the ladies. They're very into. They're very, they're keen to have their hands on you. So,
why don't I have a mug where my clothes dissolve when you put a hot drink in it?
Well, I think that would go down like really well with your fan base. Yes. So, we can talk about this. We can talk about it. I can hear the theme music coming, so we ought to go. But
I'm very embarrassed now.
Oh dear, don't be. I'll get my people to talk to your people, and then we'll sort it all out.
I gotta go now. Bye.
I want to go with you.
Gotta go. Bye.
Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
It's been good, but yeah, definitely time to come home now.
This show is part of the Pride 48 network. Find more shows over at pride48.com.
Oh dear, what's going on now? Oh, it's the Shy Life podcast.
Let's go. I have a voice. I have a voice.
You have a voice.
You have a voice. We have a voice.
We have a voice.
Unique voices in podcasting.
UnivazPods.net.
Oh, Warren, I'm terribly sorry about Yeti Uncle John.
He does like his merchandising, doesn't he?
Yeah,
Stop.
I was thinking a lot more perhaps the tamer end of the merchandising. I think maybe something, and I think we said this before, something that promotes you, sure enough, but more sort of the podcast, the cinematic sausage. I think I don't know, perhaps.
Were you thinking of one of those mugs that when you put hot things in it, my sausage appears? My cinematic sausage appears.
But yeah, we just have to be very careful about what we agree to. But we can negotiate our way through this minefield of.
Somehow we'll find a happy.
I'm just glad that the fans are united and there'll be no.
Yes. Yeah, that's the good thing. That tempers are calmed down, and there's not going to be any more action in the duck pond.
I can hear them though. So perhaps we ought to fly out of here whilst you still can.
I quite agree with you.
Okay. Well, thank you again, and I promise.
No, thank you.
Your life is safe. Probably when you come back next time, it'll be fine. Oh dear. Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.
I think the Shy Yeti's marvelous. Oh, such a gentleman.
I'm sorry, that was really rude, wasn't it?
Hello. No, wrong voice.
I've been waiting for that moment for ages for you to do a wrong voice.
Now that one was funny. Oh, God, what is that? Is that slime? It's slime. It's slime. Ick! Get over here and clean up that slime.
564, 564, 564, 500 plus 64, 564. Okay, let's just shove this one out. Get her going.